Okay guys, so you know how we are always constantly talking about autotune on this channel and how to use it to stylize your vocals in the likes of like Travis Scott or to clean up your notes. We've explored both paid versions of autotune and free versions of autotune. But I've recently been introduced into one that is pretty affordable and it does everything that WavesTune does, only way more user-friendly. So today's video is going to be all about exploring this new plugin that I was recently introduced to get your vocals sounding crispy, which is appropriately titled CrispyTuner. Auto-tune for beginners and advanced people. Let's go. Yo, what is up everybody? I am Legend and welcome to the next video where I am reviewing yet another auto-tune plugin, but I truly do think that this is going to be one that's really going to resonate with a lot of you guys out there as beginners, as intermediate musicians, as advanced creators in music, because this plugin literally has levels for each and every one of those people. This is a plugin company that reached out to me basically asking me if I wanted to do a review on their plugin, and usually when I get these kind of things it's like, oh, you know, some fly-by-night company, it's not going to be good, whatever, but I gave it a try anyway, and I was pleasantly surprised at how effective this plugin was and all the features that it has to offer. Alright, so here we are once again in GarageBand. This is my song Blackberry Sweet, came out a couple weeks ago. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But anyway, I'm going to be testing this CrispyTuner out in this particular song because this is a song that I do use autotune pretty heavily. The verse has a lot of autotune. Let's just listen to it.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here. I don't take kindly to niggas all in my ear.
So this is what it sounds like with WavesTune. I currently have WavesTune on this particular song. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off WavesTune. I'm going to come here in my audio units, Crispy Audio, and we're going to select CrispyTuner. All right, so just to briefly go through everything that I will cover in this video, there are three different options you can choose to view CrispyTuner and edit your vocals. So the first one's going to be the simple option, and this is basically going to be kind of likened to GarageBand's very basic auto-tune features, where you set the key right here, and then you tune the vocals here from very subtle to very extreme. The second example would be advanced, and this is where it gets more advanced. You have the similar knobs that are in WavesTune with transition, the tightness, and the correction, and then you can also transpose. You can use these different formats over here, which I'll talk about later. And then there is the graphical option right here, which is also in WavesTune, but it will display all the notes that you can edit individually using all these different tools to make slides and cuts and add vibrato, different things like that, which I'll cover later in the video. So these are the three different things I'm going to be covering. Also, what's cool with CrispyTuner is it comes with another plugin called ScaleFinder, and what this is it's basically a plugin that allows you to find the scale of any particular song that you're working with. What you do is you add it as a plugin to whatever your instrumental is. You click the text scale and then you start playing the song, and basically what it'll do is it'll tell you here that the scale of the song would be in D minor, or if it was in F major or whatever it may be, and then you would click send to CrispyTuner, and what that does is it'll automatically send the scale that it finds at the key of the song to every instance of CrispyTuner. This is not the right scale, so we're going to go ahead and change it to D natural minor, and this is the actual scale that we're messing with in this song. So here is the simple interface. This is one for people that don't want to get too crazy and like editing your vocals and messing with the tightness and like all the parameters of your whatever like instance of auto-tune you're trying to go for. So this is basically comparable to that of the GarageBand's auto-tune. Basically you set the key that the song is in. This is D natural minor, and then you adjust the strength of the tuning. So if you want it to have low tuning, let's hear what this sounds like with no tuning at all first.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So it's not bad. It actually doesn't need auto-tune, but I like to have that precise feel. So we'll turn this on and we'll bring it up to about a third of the way.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So it adds a little bit of that auto-tune in there, and you can hear it's subtle. That's what we're going for, this subtle tuning. But if you want to go extreme and have it sound really robotic and really stylistic, we can just blast it all the way up and see what that sounds like.
What you doing around these parts, man?
A little bit more
Never
robotic.
seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
A little bit more robotic as it's tuning the vocal. Now you have these other things down here, the global tuning, which if you have the help button selected, it'll show you everything that these buttons do and these knobs do. So if we hover over reference, it says the reference pitch, the frequency of the musical note A4. This setting should match the tuning of your instruments used in your song. So the most common tuning is 440 hertz. I'm not going to touch that. Detune is when you're actually trying to get a little bit sharp, a little bit flat on your note, or like a different pitch without completely like transposing. So this shifts the output pitch by the given amount. So whatever the corrected pitch is that's coming out, you can detune it by a certain amount to transpose or have like some kind of artistic effect if you want to. So I'll show you what that sounds like here. So right now it's not detuned at all.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
And I'll start to use it here.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So you see how it's like detuning that right there. So we're going to set this back to 0 because I don't want to do that. Time, this is the note tolerance. So the time tolerance basically is the time for which a note must be held to be chosen as the tuner's new target note. So let's say I'm singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So little, little, you hear how I do that scoop right there, right? So I'm hitting two different notes. That's little. So if I have this turned down to a lower amount, a lower tolerance, it's gonna be more accepting of those notes that I hold for a shorter amount of time. Little star, how I wonder what you want. Versus if I blast it all the way up to like 200, that little is gonna be completely like corrected to the twinkle, twinkle, little star. So I'll try and see if I can show that here. I don't know if I have any vocals that really demonstrate that, but we'll see.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
Now let's turn it all the way up.
What you doing around these parts, man?
You hear that? So instead of what you doing around these parts, man, that round these parts, round these, that was a shorter time that I held that note. So it's ignoring that note because it's not being held long enough to match this tolerance. So
what you doing around these parts, man?
Versus here.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
One thing that you can use for artistic purposes, I'm going to turn this down because I don't want it super extreme. And then we have the pitch tolerance, which is how much closer the input pitch must be to a note for it to be chosen as the new target note. Higher values are more forgiving for short pitch insecurities. Lower values may result in unwanted note transitions. So if I turn this down, basically what it's saying is it's going to be more willing to accept pitches that are further away from the pitch that I'm inputting. So basically this has to do a lot with sharpness and flatness, because pitch correction in AutoTune is basically correcting the pitch, correcting those sharps and flats, basically when you're off key just by a little bit. If you're off key by a lot, it's going to pitch correct. If you have this setting like turned down, it's going to pitch correct to the note that's just below the note that you're actually trying to hit if you have a low tolerance. If you turn the tolerance or the pitch like way up to this 50, what's going to happen is it's not going to allow those sharps or flats to influence the fluctuation of the pitch correction, if that makes sense. So let's have it turn down to 0 and show you what I mean by that.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
Turn it up to like 20.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan? What you doing around these parts?
You can kind of hear it right there. But if I turn it all the way up to 50,
what you doing around these parts, man?
You see how that part is cleaned up right there? That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. Let me show you that.
What you doing around? What you doing around? What you doing around?
What you doing around? Versus if I turn it down to 20, you can hear a little bit more fluctuation on that doing. What you doing around? Like just a tiny fluctuation.
What you doing around? What you doing around? What you doing around?
And then if I turn it all the way up, it's eliminated.
What you doing around? What you doing around?
So that's good if you want to correct those tiny fluctuations.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So there you go. And then let's just check out this live section really quick. If we turn on mixing, it's a little bit. When I'm singing right now with the monitoring on mixing, there's a delay because it's getting better quality sound, and I'm still hearing it live per se, but there's a huge delay, so it's kind of distracting. It's like coming in kind of late. Whereas if I turn it to live and I want to record and hear my actual vocals live, it's going to have a little bit of a lesser quality, but I'll still be able to hear that auto-tune.
This is the live quality of the auto-tune.
So it's like really on point. We're going to keep it on mixing because I don't monitor my vocals anyway. So that's this simple, right? So then we come to advanced, and here's where we get a little bit more into the technical side of things, where we have the note transition, the tightness, and the correction. Now, if you watch my other auto-tune videos, you know what these different things are, but just to kind of skim over it, transition is how quickly the output pitch jumps to the new note after a note change. So that's going to be the transition from one note to the next note. Tightness is how closely the pitch is kept to the target note. So this is going to be how like on pitch of that target note is going to be. So there's not going to be any variation. If you have this turned all the way up, there's not going to be any variation in that pitch. It's not going to be sharp or flat or anything like that. It's going to be right on the dot. That's the tightness of the note. You know, that's why we call it cleaning it up. It's tightening up those notes, those transitions, those notes, all that stuff. And then we have correction, which is going to be how much of the corrected pitch curve we apply to the output signal. Basically, the note that's being corrected, the corrected note that's coming out after the tuning has happened, how much of that note do you want to be heard in the mix? I always turn correction all the way up because I want it to be as clean as possible. Maybe like down to 90 if you want to humanize it just a little bit more. I would do, but I wouldn't go anything below that. The real wheelhouse, I think, for humanizing your pitch correction is here in the transition and the tightness. So the transition is going to be kind of like the more turned up you have it, the more robotic it's going to sound, and tightness is how on pitch and exact that pitch is when it actually hits that corrected note. So let's turn tightness down, transition down, just to give you an idea.
Black hood, black skin, you're no good to the white man.
So this is with like moderate pitch correction, transition, tightness, and correction all the way, or nearly all the way up, or turn all the way up. Now, if we turn transition all the way up and tightness all the way up, you're going to hear how tight and how precise those transitions are from note to note, and kind of like this robotic feel that it has.
Black hood,
you hear that?
Black skin, you're no good to the white man.
So that black skin, that's where you hear the transition. When it's going from one note, skin, the skin, that note transition right there, that's how you can tell that this is turned all the way up.
Black skin, black skin.
And if I turn it down, it's not going to sound as robotic.
Black skin, black skin,
black skin. You hear that?
Black skin, black skin.
So this is one thing I like to keep not all the way up. If I want to like humanize it, I'll turn it like around 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way up, and then tightness I usually keep all the way up. Or if I do want to turn it down, I'll just turn it down around the same amount, but I'll keep correction all the way up.
Black skin.
Another thing that I really like about CrispyTuner is it has different effects that you can apply. So it has these formants over here, and it has this transpose right here. Transpose is going to be a way to shift the note of whatever your vocal is doing to a totally different note. So if I come here I go like this. So yeah, transpose will change the key of the vocal that you're currently selected on. So like how this thing says is transpose the output by the given amount of steps on the scale, and by steps they mean like half steps, whole steps, things like that. This can be used to automatically create harmony tracks. This is something that I think is going to be really beneficial for a lot of people who don't know how to come up with harmonies. They can just take one vocal, duplicate it, and then apply a transpose and automatically come up with a harmony. I'll probably make a video about this, but I'll demonstrate what it does. So transpose, this is our original note.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
Now if I want to take it up 5 steps, listen to what it does.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
Or 7 is a full octave, I believe.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So you can literally change your range, essentially. I mean, it's not going to sound like too natural, but you can change the notes that you're singing to something else. Duplicate this really quick and see if we can get like a good little harmony in here. So we have our original note. What you doing around these parts, man? And the second one, I'm going to take up to 5 steps. Now listen to this.
I could tell you about some things here. I don't take kindly to niggas all in my ear.
So you can get octaves. I can go an octave down, but you guys get what I'm saying. So you can come up with harmonies by duplicating the track and then transposing it to something completely, totally different. All right, and then something else that I want to highlight is the formant. So this formant preservation is going to be the realism of the pitch correction. Setting this to less than 100 makes pitch correction more noticeable. So if we have this turned down, essentially it's going to complement the transition and the tightness to make it sound more robotic. But if you have it up to 100, it's going to make it sound more realistic. So the higher you have this number, the more realistic it's going to sound. Now shift, this is one thing that I'm really excited about. This is kind of shifts the formant by the given amount without affecting the pitch. So it'll shift kind of like the vowel or make it sound like you're going to a higher register like chipmunk or like a deeper voice. But I'll just demonstrate because it's hard to explain.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
That's dope.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So that's gonna be dope when you're trying to like add some flavor to a song on certain parts. You like do the shift right there. You got like the chipmunk singing something, your normal voice, and then the lower voice singing something at some part. It's really dope features that I love here in CrispyTuner. Now, lastly, we'll go to the graphic section, and you guys already know what this looks like because of WavesTune, all my videos on WavesTune. So we'll just find our...
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So you basically let this thing print out the vocals here on the piano roll so that you can be able to edit them the same way as WavesTune. So here are all of our notes, right? And we have these different functions at the top that do different things. These are like the target notes, the start notes, the end notes, the transition time, tightness. All this stuff is just kind of like reading, you know, what is going on here. So if I select this, it's going to tell me the start note is E3, the end is E3, the transition time, all that stuff, because I turned it all the way up. But I want to focus here on these different features right here. So we have the scissors, which is the split tool. You guys have seen that in GarageBand. I mean, you guys have seen that in WavesTune when I'm like editing different tracks and I want to, like, for instance, split right there, and then I'll move half of this note up here.
What you doing around these parts, man?
So around these parts, like, it's not supposed to do that, but I can do that if I wanted to. With the split tool. So basically it allows you to split these notes and then like map them to different keys, you know, different notes other than what you sang originally. So that's pretty cool. We have the target note tool, which this is probably one of my favorite tools about CrispyTuner. So you click this and let's say so all these are actually supposed to be up here. What you doing around these parts?
What you doing around?
So it's going, what you doing around these parts? But it's supposed to be what you doing around. So if I want to get all those notes to come up here, instead of having to click individual up, or highlighting and then dragging them up, literally all I do is click this target note tool. I hover above them and I just highlight right here and watch what happens. They all automatically go up.
What you doing around these parts, man?
So I think that's extremely dope feature. Like if I wanted to, I could drag all these notes up to this bar right here.
What you doing around these parts, man?
So that's something that's really dope. Also, the next tool is the slope one, which I also didn't see in WavesTune. This one lets you slide like a long note like this. I can just take this and drag it down to whatever note or up to whatever note I want to. So listen to what this sounds like.
What you doing around these parts, man?
Around these parts, man. This is great for like stylistic effects when you want to have something that's like diving off or going up into the hemisphere or whatever, or atmosphere rather. You can do that. So if I want to like drag this all the way up.
What you doing around these parts, man?
You can do some crazy stuff with this, so I really like that. And then we have the pitch correction tool. So this is if you look at this line here, so the red line is at my actual vocals that I recorded. The yellow line are my pitch corrected vocals. That's why it's so straight, because that's the way that I set it. So with this tool, you can actually change. You can click and change it to go back to the original, or to go back to this robotic sound. So you just click and drag up or down on each individual note instead of adjusting everything as a whole with those knobs on the other page to make it sound even more human.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never
Edit that right there. So that's something that's pretty cool. But let's say if I had everything, set straight, but I wanted to have some vibrato. We come to the vibrato tool. So we click that, right? And what you do is we're here on this particular track. It's already corrected to the note. You do the same thing. You click and then you drag up to add the human nature of vibrato to your particular note here.
What you doing around these parts, man?
Let's get the man.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never.
Man, like you hear it's like super dramatic, but
what you doing around these parts, man? Never.
So that's really nice, because the drawback of using a pitch correction of any kind is when you have that extreme correction, it's gonna take out your vibrato. It's gonna just sound like you're going like I don't know how to explain it, but it makes it super robotic and it takes out that so you can add it back in after you've already corrected the pitch, so it's not going off key and all that stuff. I showed you what the split tool is. The glue tool, it glues different notes together. Say if I want to have all these notes come up to here. So, I highlight all these notes and I'll click on this top one right here. They all glue together to that top one. So it's kind of the same as this, except you can select certain ones. You don't just drag. So let's say I want this note. If I can do it like this, click that, and you see, we'll click this one and click that one. It goes up. So it's like one by one. That's how you do it. So really dope. You can also trash, different things here. It's really customizable, and all this stuff in here, like I said, like if I go to WavesTune, you do have the vibrato tool, you do have the split. Oh yeah, the pencil does the same thing. So it just, I don't know. There's something about this CrispyTuner plugin that just draws me closer to it than WavesTune does. Maybe because WavesTune looks a little bit dated and this looks a little bit more up to date. I love the user interface of CrispyTuner. I know that's very like surface of me to say, but when something looks dope to work in, it's fun to work in. WavesTune it just looks daunting. It just looks very complicated. But the way that they laid out CrispyTuner, from the super beginner stuff you know, just select the key and you turn it up, to the advanced thing where you can turn up the transition, tightness, and the correction. It has all the labels here. It has the help sections to where it'll show you what each and everything does, to the graphical thing where you have all your tools up here. And I don't know, it just feels a lot less cluttered in CrispyTuner. It feels a lot more intuitive and just more pleasurable for me to work in. And so I think that's probably, honestly, it's probably going to be my AutoTune plugin of choice from here on out. And I would recommend that you guys, anybody who is looking for an auto-tuning plugin that hasn't already bought one, or even if you already bought WavesTune or something on Antares or whatever it may be, CrispyTuner is going to be one that also has different features, because like I said, even though that it has like some of the same features that I kind of looked over, like the painting tool, the pencil tool, and all that stuff, WavesTune doesn't have the format feature, at least not that I can find. And if I wanted to try and find it in here, where is it at? In my time using this, I've enjoyed it way much more than WavesTune. So I would highly recommend anybody that wants to get this plugin, go ahead and get it. There will be a link down in the description. There will also be, once again, right here is the code that you can use. Legend 10 is the one that you can use to get your 10% off. You know, get it while you can, because right now I think it's like $49.99, so you get 10% off of that. It's going to be $5 off. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. Like this video if it helped you out, if it was very informative to you, I would appreciate that. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notification so you'll be notified every single time I upload a brand new video like this one. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here. I don't take kindly to niggas all in my ear. Black hood, black skin, you're no good to the white man. Wrong place at the right time. You got one chance to call your lifeline. Whether you like it or not, everybody knows. Hate trickles from the top, friends are really folks. Red and blues around the block, you don't wanna go.